Exactly.
Or to document the documenters, like previous documenters.
Yeah.
And each other as well.
And each other, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
So it's not really like a reversal. It's more just like an equalizer kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's giving agency to the people who are usually the victims of surveillance.
Yeah.
Some example. It was coined by this man, Steve Mann.
Yeah.
Is his name.
He's a man. Steve Mann.
Steve Mann. He's an important figure for this, and he's done a lot of experiments where he will go into public places that he knows have surveillance cameras and that are also that also prohibit the taking of pictures even of yourself, and he will attempt to photograph what's going on and himself in that place. And he says other examples of like government employed surveillance would be like signs on the back of trucks that say, "How's my driving call?" Well, like in subways, if you see something, say something.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, yeah, and I mean, it's interesting, like, this idea that we can, like, survey each other kind of, like, also, you know, brings up ideas of, like we were talking about, like, subjectivity, or, like, this, like, the idea that, like, surveillance is a form of objective, like, reality or objective, an objective point of view, you know, is kind of put up for question within the ideas of sousveillance, you know, which is, like, you know, inner subjectivity, basically, like, you know, what, like, you know.
Yeah, there's the argument that surveillance isn't actually effective because it just creates more surveillance. And I mean, it is just another extension of the Panopticon, which is you're always being watched. And now if it's possible that everyone is capable of being a surveyor, then it's just deeper surveillance. So the Panopticon, in terms of the history of it, it was developed, the concept by Bentham originally, and it's as an example of the perfect prison system where there would be one centralized observer, the symbol of, like, omniscience and the all-knowing, and he would be located in the middle and unseen, one-way, like, windows, and the cells would be around it. It may have actually been a half circle, but regardless, it's the idea of there being one located watcher. And
his back is, like, that's kind of the idea I was thinking of, is like that person's back is where the surveillance ends. There's no one watching him. It's like there's everything in front of him.
Yeah, and that's where the state of paranoia comes in.
Like I think this idea, I mean, I think, like, Foucault's idea, I think was more like disambiguation, or like this idea of, you know, that, like you were saying, that it's like this, it's sort of just a state of paranoia, like, or, you know, it's kind of just a concept, not necessarily a reality, that we're all being watched all the time, you know, which isn't probably true, you know, but that's the idea of just, like, you know, this state of paranoia. And I think that surveillance is interesting because it puts you in the role, you know, potentially of the observer, and it kind of, like, I think more than ever now, we have the possibility of being, like, surveyed, you know, by each other, and you know, but I think that it's sort of, you know, we can now, I don't know, like, you know, like, we get to be more anonymous, you know, like, we are sort of constantly, like, in that role of the observer.
You were talking about Web 2.0 and how all this surveillance wouldn't be so popular, wouldn't happen so much if people didn't have this immediate platform. But I remember hearing too that, like, in the age of the internet, people have become a lot more conservative because we started watching ourselves more too. Like, things that you post online, now that you know that people can watch it because you can judge it on how much you watch things, and people are a lot more restricted as to what they're like putting online or showing of themselves.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be like no man's land and all this stuff, but now, you know, now that's being sourced.
The difference between surveillance and sousveillance in terms of the Panopticon theory is that surveillance is no longer centralized. It's trying to like dissipate that authority.
Yeah.
And also like demask the people who are watching by like creating a way to watch them. You know, it's
I feel like it's creating also it's creating a more maybe a more complicated structure or a more three-dimensional kind of structure instead of just like this with lines out watching. It's kind of like, I don't know, it brings new levels into it.
right. There's no point of power. It's becoming very abstracted.
Yeah.
It's supposed to create a consciousness of there being an observer at all time, whether or not that is actually real. And the observer has like full periphery of everything that's happening. And in that way, if people are aware that they're being watched, they will modify or like temper their actions and make them be appropriate. And like that's the idea of surveillance. So many of those like bubbles, black bubbles that you see on the walls may not actually contain a video camera, but they're like the symbol of video camera, and they're meant to create some type of awareness.
A box for yourself in a way.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it comes from this like architectural movement, like creating prisons that you know are shaped like, you know, a pentagon or like where there's a central, you know, observer.
Right. I mean, originally the Panopticon was a prison. Like, it's an architectural plan for a prison.
Yeah.
And I think if we were going to directly apply surveillance to the prison, it would possibly mean that each prisoner, each cell would come equipped with its own video cameras to not only videotape the guards, but themselves. To not say that, to give everyone the power and the right to videotape whatever they want as well.
Yeah. But then within that is this sort of
which essentially makes the surveillance of the government like a moot point. It disarms them in one save if you're watching yourself, which we'll get back to.
Yeah, which is basically what Hassan Alahi, you know, is talking about. But also within that, you know, is like what you were talking about. You know, the sort of like if you see something, say something mentality, or like, you know, I mean, so within a Panopticon, if everyone's a surveyor, then, you know, like, wouldn't that be advantageous for people who are already in control? Because like then everybody's sort of like keeping tabs on everybody.